Hi, I'm Nomi. I'm an indie author from Canada, and I wrote a book called Intense Feelings. But first, I wrote a SIMS story called Intense Feelings. And today, we're going to be looking at episode 1 of Intense Feelings, the Sims version. This will be a series on my channel where we go through every single episode together, and you guys can see the differences between this version and this version. So without further ado, let's just dive right in. Before we begin, I just want to preface this by saying that this is when I started to take telling Sim stories really seriously. I built sets, I extensively modded the game, and I had so much custom content that at the time it took my computer 2 hours to load The Sims 2. We start episode 1 at the Horse and Carriage pub, which is this little sneaky nod to the first novel I ever wrote, which no one should ever read. Moving along. So as you can see, I had built a set for this scene, which was a pub, and I filled it with pretty much every sim I had in my neighborhood, and the game was barely running. Like it was it was a struggle. But I wanted it to look busy and I wanted it to look realistic, so this is what I came up with. As we go through these episodes, you're going to see an evolution in my picture taking and my posing and my set design and how intensive I got about this whole process. Then we meet the gang. Leif Callahan, the twins Tyler and Blake Ashby, Harlow Yin, Jay Johar. I don't know why his picture's so far away. Poor Jay. Now, the gang is discussing, where the heck is Nina? She's always late. And here's Nina. She's coming up to the pub right now. This is Nina. Then they kind of chat and be like, what took you so long? Harlow's like, hey girl. And Blake gets out of the booth because at this point in the story, Nina and Blake are boyfriend and girlfriend. Also, in this version of the story, Nina and her friends are all still in college. I think that they're 21 at the beginning of the story. I aged them up for the novel because I didn't feel confident that I could write college students anymore. I was a college student when I was writing this, so it made sense, but at this point in my life, I didn't think I could realistically write the college experience, so I aged them up a little bit for the book. Then, when Blake sits back down, Harlow's like, girl, come to the bathroom with me. I have to tell you something. So Harlow pulls Nina to the bathroom to gossip about Tyler, Blake's twin brother, and tell her how obviously he's in love with her. Nina's like, I don't believe you. Come on, we're just friends. And Harlow's like, no, he's in love with you. And Nina kind of knows it. So then it says Tyler and Blake Ashby had been in Nina's life since the 9th grade. So Tyler and Nina knew each other first. They had English class together and they became friends. And Tyler had a crush on her but didn't know how to approach her about it. However, his twin brother Blake had no problem making a move. So by the end of summer vacation, Blake and Nina were together and Tyler was depressed and emo because he let her slip right through his fingers. Then I literally wrote, Nina was happy with Blake, but couldn't help feeling like Tyler would always have intense feelings for her. So I'm popping that title in right away. This series was meant to be a joke. When I was writing Intense Feelings seasons 1 to 4, it was pure silliness, pure camp, pure parody. So when I started writing season 5, that was the theme as well. It was meant to be so silly. But then I fell in love with the characters, and as we go through this story, you're gonna see like how I shifted and this became a real thing to me. So Nina and Blake kind of fell into this comfortable relationship as they went through high school and into college together. But as the years went by, Blake started feeling like he was trapped in the relationship and that everything was just predictable and he just knew how his life was going to go, and that was it. It was just him and Nina. They were going to get married and have kids, and his life was over essentially. Like he was feeling a little bit trapped in the relationship. So this was all something Nina was thinking about, and then Harlow yells at her to get her attention and we snap back to the bathroom. But anyway, then Harlow starts complaining about Jay. And she just complains that he's been flirting with the barmaid and that she finds him so annoying. So then we kind of jump over to explain who Jay is. And Jay is Leif's best friend. And he's also kind of like a second big brother to Nina. And Nina loved him pretty much as she loved her brother Leif, which was a lot. Also in this version of the story, the age gap between Nina and Leif and Devlin and Charlotte is bigger. It's 4 years instead of 2. So at this point, Leif's done college. And after college, he bought a house with his trust fund. He's not quite as rich as he is in the novel version, but he bought a house in cash with his trust fund and let Jay and Nina live with him. And then we just have a little flashback to say that the boys never found Nina annoying and that they didn't mind her tagging along and playing with them. They really just treated her like she was, like their little sister. And the three of them were inseparable, so it was natural that they would all share a house together and live together. And as you can see from these first few pictures of Leaf's house, it's like a small little house. They weren't living in a mansion. They were just, they were well off. They had a lot of money from their construction company, but they were not the billionaires that they are in the novel Intense Feelings. And now we're going to learn more about Harlow, who's also Nina's other best friend. They met in grade school and have been friends since they were little kids. And it says Harlow's parents were better off than Nina's and that they could afford to buy her own loft apartment when she was done high school, and she's just been living on her own since basically she was 18. And Nina and Harlow kind of have a fiery friendship. Harlow is very opinionated and very strong-willed and very stubborn, which clashes with Nina's like laid-back, easygoing, relaxed attitude. So they have fights, but they always make up and they're always friends again. However, the biggest snag in their relationship is that Harlow hates Jay. And this really confuses Jay because he likes Harlow and Harlow used to like him. And it was just like one day something changed. She snapped and she started hating his guts. Now we come back to the present and Harlow and Nina come back from the bathroom to sit with the boys. Meanwhile, up at the bar, a dark-haired stranger orders 2 drinks. He goes to sit in the corner of the bar with Charlotte Ainsworth. She asks, "What are you doing, Devlin?" He smirks at her and says, "I'm ordering Nina a drink." Charlotte's confused. She's like, "Why?" And he's like, "Look, it's been 4 years and I'm back for revenge. This is the start of my plot. Don't mess with me." Then we start to talk about the rivalry between the Ainsworths and the Callahans. So this is Patrick Callahan with little Leaf, and he's coaching Leaf, essentially telling him that the Ainsworths are evil, and if you see Devlin at school, hit him before he hits you. He also cautions Leaf that he has to look after his little sister and protect her at all costs. And then he says, "I wish things weren't this way, my boy, but a Callahan will never break bread with an Ainsworth, and that's just the way it is." Now, across town, Alistair Ainsworth is screaming at his children because Devlin had met Leaf in kindergarten. He asks, it says, "How long have you been consorting with that filth?" Devlin's like, "Please, Daddy, I didn't know. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to play with him." And then Alistair disciplines him. Alistair storms out of the room. He's like, "You can never talk to that guy again. You're enemies. Like, you need to fight him if you see him." And he leaves. Charlotte rushes over to Devlin and she's like, "We'll always have each other." So the years go by, Devlin gets bigger, the girls get bigger, and Devlin just starts bullying Nina all the time, which of course enrages Leaf, who's extremely close to his little sister and has been told by his father that he has to protect her at all costs. So the boys are always getting into it. They're always fighting, even at school. And then it says that Devlin didn't hate Leaf because his dad told him to, or because he was better at everything, better at sports, better at grades, better with girls. He hates Leaf because Leaf has a good relationship with his father and a happy home life. And Devlin's dad hates him and is cruel to him mentally, emotionally, and physically. Back at the bar, Charlotte's begging Devlin not to go through with a revenge plot. And Devlin says, "I have to do this." She asks, "What did you do? Poison her drink?" And Devlin goes on to explain that it's deeper than that and he's going to need Charlotte's help to carry out his plot. So then the barmaid comes over and brings Nina her drink and everyone's like, "Ooh, who's this from? A secret admirer?" And Blake gets a little upset at this. Now he's also been drinking more than everybody else and he's a little bit drunk at this point. Nina's frustrated with his intense reaction and is getting annoyed at him, so Harlow calls her over to dance. Nina, Harlow, Jay, and Tyler go over to dance at the jukebox while Leaf is like, "Don't you feel like dancing, Blake?" And Blake's like, "I'm out of here. Just tell Nina that I said bye." Leaf's getting up from the table when suddenly he runs into Charlotte Ainsworth. He's immediately angry because it's Leaf and we all know he has anger issues. He's just like, "What are you doing here?" And she's like, "I didn't know I wasn't allowed to come to a public bar." He then apologizes and says, "Sorry, it's just that whenever I see you, it means Devlin isn't far behind." She says, What are you talking about? Devlin's not even here anymore. He's been in Europe for 4 years. And Leaf says, well, I just know I should never trust an Ainsworth. Charlotte fires back, I don't trust a Callahan. I didn't come over here to ask what you were doing. And Leaf's like, then why did you come over here? And she says, to say hello. She says, I foolishly thought the animosity would have worn off by now. It's just nice to see a familiar face, that's all. And Leaf's completely confused, but he's like, all right, well, cool to see you. I'm going to go dance with my friends. And Charlotte watches him go, feeling guilty that she has agreed to help Devlin, who is plotting evil things still from his table across the bar. And that's episode 1 of season 5 of Intense Feelings. I'm going to do all 29 episodes of the original Intense Feelings and post them here on YouTube for you guys. They do get longer and way more convoluted, and I think even by episode 4 I had to split it into 2 entries on LiveJournal because it said it was too long, but that's how the original story started. So if you enjoyed this, I hope you'll come back and watch the rest, and I will see you next time.